Well, I've mounted up my Maven 20 to 40 by 67 spotting scope. This is an amazing piece of glass, fluorite glass as it's advertised, and I just think the image is spectacular. I love the footprint of this, the capability to break it down, take the eyepiece off, you know, interchangeable with some other things. Some of the feature sets like the integral sunshade are really cool. The smoothness of the dials and the knobs here, the focus or the magnification ring, both of them are so well done. This does feel like an incredibly robust spotting scope. So first of all, for you hunters out there, Maven is a brand I'm gonna put way up there at the top, in the top 2 or 3 for sure, maybe probably top 1 or 2. For my preferences, when you're considering toughness and glass quality, it feels very, very robust. And any extra weight that you might feel, which they're not bad at all, but any weight that you might feel is usually just the density of the glass and the quality of what you're getting, the materials. I think they really choose where to save weight well, and it's not in the structural bits. And so I think it's actually a really nicely designed optic. This, though, clarity-wise, again, in the top 1 or 2, it might be tied for first place for the best image that I see in all the spotting scopes that I've reviewed. Anyways, I am really happy with this. No, it doesn't have an 80 millimeter or a 60 millimeter, and it doesn't need it. Even in low light settings, which today is not low light, but even in low light settings, I've been able to extract such a great, bright image, crisp, good edges and detail on the things I'm looking at. No chromatic aberration that I see. But I'm looking right now at a barn at about 360 yards from where I'm standing right now. And this is a good spot to look because there's a huge amount of colors, and there's also a nice wide field here that I can look across. I've got road signs, I've got windows, and then some person's property that's visible to the road and everywhere else. So I'm not going to be looking at any personal things or at their house, but at an abandoned barn and a silo. Got a field, and I've got some blue water, highway traffic. This is just a good spot for me to look and pan around, and I can get about 600 yards out of this spot. And so that's most people. A spotter like this, that's probably the distances you're gonna be looking is, you know, out to 1,000, probably not much further than that. I will use this further for sure, and I'm gonna show that with some video later, but I'll use it as close as 20 yards and as far as maybe a mile or so. Looking at this location right now, I've got reds, I've got some faded red, browns, rust, silver, some gray, lots of tans, black. There's just a lot of things to look at, some white, many things to look at here. And so what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my phone off of this, and I'm gonna throw on my adapter here for my phone. It's kind of like a Digiscoping kit style adapter, just Amazon, really cheap. But these metal ones actually do a good job, and they have some pads in there. Just don't over tighten it. If you do go this route, be very sensitive to not crush the eyepiece on there and crank it down. It doesn't take too much to hold our phones. And so I'm gonna throw that on there and just give you a little bit of an idea of what I'm seeing. 20 to 40 power, kind of go back and forth, talk about color trueness a little bit, field of view, and then maybe just focus in on a few different items and give you a feeling of what it's like to be behind the spotting scope. All right, I'm looking at this barn at a few hundred yards away, a little past a few hundred yards. You can see a big water basin there, old door, the detail on the glass of the door at, it's got to be closer to 400 where we're standing right now. Yeah, that's closer to 400 yards right there. And I can see, I could probably see in the windows a little bit if there was a bit more light. If you can tell, it's kind of not very sunny out at the moment. I can see lots of color. I can see the rust on the roof, the detail of the branches. If there was an animal out there, even to some degree, I could probably see birds on those branches. And I'm only on 20 power right now, but remember, with better glass quality and clarity, the better it is, the less magnification that you need generally. That's generally true. Of course, if you don't blow up magnification a little bit, you can't see quite as far, but it's just generally true that, for example, if you took a $300 spotting scope and turned it up to 60 power, there's no guarantee that it would have much of an image at all, or that you'd be able to see your image, because contrast would just blow out, colors smudge together, it just has chromatic aberration generally at that price point, and it's not going to look very good. But with a really high quality piece of glass like this 20-40 from Maven, I don't need to be above 20 power right now to get excellent quality of image. It's one of the things I love about this, is that I just don't need to be very high on the Mag ring to get a really good image, which means I can have a wider field of view. So you can see the advantage of this pretty quickly. I can be on lower power, better detail and clarity, wider field of view, brighter image. It just goes on and on, but let's go ahead and push it up a little bit. I'm gonna go halfway. Let's go, that's halfway in between. Now I'm gonna touch up the focus a tad. My phone screws with this a little bit, so it's kind of frustrating, but there we go. So that's halfway in between. Yeah, it's gonna cut down on your field of view a little bit. It's not terrible though. I can still get a pretty wide field of view. Remember, I'm seeing like multiple buildings here. Let's pan over just a touch. And I'm gonna go to something new to look at for a moment. So right there, looking at this old silo, lots of texture and detail and rust, and there's things to look at with this too. It's a little more interesting. So I can see a good amount of detail on the building itself. I could, if I wanted to, I could magnify this with my phone with a technology. That's a nice addition of having some sort of digiscoping kit, but typically I'm just gonna be looking through with my eye. I'm gonna back off to 20 power again. And back up to mid-range. I don't think you lose an enormous field of view. It's not too bad. It's pretty normative. I feel like because of that clarity, whatever I'm looking at, I'm gonna be totally happy. It's a bright image, it's not dark. If it was darkening a lot, I wouldn't wanna run up that magnification too much because it would just reduce my image and clarity would be gone and contrast would go away. I'm gonna go up to, there's 40x. I do have to reposition my camera just slightly, or my phone. The thing that's gonna happen when you move up to 40x is it does change your eye box a little bit. This, I think, has a pretty decent eye box. I don't know what the exit pupil is on it. I kind of forgot off the top of my head, but it's good enough that I'm always like, dang, why is it so much easier to look through this than most spotting scopes? And it's huge. It's a huge lens, but it's very easy to get behind. So on 40 power there, I'm gonna say that on 40 power, I feel like the detail that I can see on this is equivalent to the 60 power of a lot of the other spotting scopes out there, except for at the 60 power, they start to get a little, blended, a little muddy images, not quite as clean. But if I was trying to read text or something like that, I might push it up closer to 60 power on some of those like $1,500 spotting scopes. But with this one being a little bit closer to 2000, you do get that bump in glass clarity, fit and finish and feel as well. And it comes out in the image, in my opinion. All right, now I'm gonna go closer, back off that magnification again, just go to 178 yards, pretty close. And hopefully my phone will let me focus without too much trouble here. I do have some brush and vegetation I'm working around. So the other side of this pond, about 178 yards from right here. Again, 20 power is easily enough. At 178 yards, I don't need more than that for almost anything that I ever do, including spotting rimfire at distance in paper. I can do it on 20 power with this scope easily. The detail is enough that I could see ducks, birds, otter, beaver floating around here. I could get a good idea of their habitat, where they're going. If he's got a little muck hole over there that the muskrat gets into, I could see into that pretty well. In the brush itself, I can clean that up just a little. There we go. So on that tree, there's a fence post right behind it. I can see through it. It's not just a brown blob, which is really nice. I can see through it. I can see what's beyond it. So think of this in like a hunting scenario. If you're at 178 yards, with my naked eye right now, looking at that bush, If there was a critter behind it, I could not see it because the brush is too dense to my naked eye, so whatever is behind it is veiled. But in this scenario, when I'm looking through, even at 20 power only, at 178 yards, I can see through the brush, and I could see what was beyond it. If there was something, a bird, some sort of game, I could see beyond the bush itself. So again, one more advantage. Let's go to, I'm gonna move over to a little beyond 600 yards. Actually, wait, one more thing. Just because people will be curious, let's blow up that image a little bit and focus. So on 40 power, that's what you're gonna see at 40 power. Slight repositioning of my camera would be necessary there. But 40 power, I can do a lot. Field of view is gonna cut off, but I can do quite a bit with 40 power there. And quite frankly, that's more than I need at this distance. Now you're looking at some signage, and that signage right there is a little past 500 yards. So there's a road behind where there's a dead end. There's also a curve, so you have the curve signs. And my phone right now is focused on the center, that green crossing sign. That's where my phone is focused. If I were to take my phone off, I can actually focus on all that image from edge to edge. So the dead end sign, all the way to the right of that house over there, it all looks clear to my eye when I look through here. But with the phone, it's gonna focus on one of those things because the human eye apparently is more capable than my phone software is. I'll just say that. So in 20 power, I can essentially read the text pretty well. If I couldn't, I could increase using my phone, and you can see Chadwood and Hillside. But I can see there's two different sized texts there, a little over 500 yards away, and I'm impressed. It's very clear. The edges of the words, it's kind of like an acuity test. The edges of the words seem sharp. Of course, the green and white has a decent contrast. The yellow and the black has a decent contrast. The dead end sign, which I'm gonna go ahead and focus my phone over there for a moment. The dead end sign also has good contrast, but it's angled and parsed away from me a little bit. But I noticed the mailbox and the address line, even on 20 power, I can still see quite a bit of detail. I can almost read that text in the blue. I think if my eye was in here and not the phone, I think I could see the text in the blue better, because this is more so what I would see with my eye. That right there, and I can easily make out that. That's crazy. I've done a lot of spotting scopes here, guys. I've done a lot of glass here, just looking out, especially spotters. And very few get even close. I have one other spotting scope right now in my personal collection that can make that out really well. All the other ones, it does kind of blend together and blur. And honestly, I didn't know the difference. I didn't know that there would be that much clarity. I wasn't doing an acuity test every week, That looks really good though. Let's bump it up to about mid-range, and then I will refocus. And I'm gonna focus back on I'm gonna focus on that sign, the green sign, the back of the stop sign. I think right about there. Yep, still very clear. Image did not get terribly dark. Field of view is still decent, actually. It's quite a bit. And that must be roughly 30 power. Yeah, that's probably about 30 power right there. So at 30 power at 500 yards, making out the text on that little sign is not bad. Now you can see the dead end sign. I'll go ahead and focus. The dead end sign on the left, the mailbox, the numbers have become very visible. And I'm not going to focus on the house because I try to leave people's, even if it's on a road, I just try to leave their house out of it. But the road sign itself, lots of detail. If you kind of pierce through and you look into the woods behind, let me focus on that. There's just trees there. It's very dark. It's very dense. There's some pine trees there, and there's brush kind of mixed in, and I can actually see into the dark spots in the brush. So let's take a moment and push it up to 40 and refocus one more time. I think it's right in there. So I'm focused on the brush and the pine trees beyond. That's, you know, beyond 500 yards. I don't know exactly how far it is, but I can see into the thicket a little bit there. Again, if it was a deer, a brown deer, I'm 100% confident that with the lighting right now, I could make out a brown deer running in there, maybe a raccoon, some other critters, birds. Sorry about the wind. It is very gusty out. Maybe some birds there, and that's at 500 yards. Pretty impressive. On the pine trees themselves, I can make out the knots and the knurls that are coming out there, branches that are broken off. So the whole point is, guys, I'm going to focus on the green sign again. Whole point is, I think the detail that you can pick out on these higher end spotters is worth it. That's a change of pace for me. It's a change of my mind. I definitely was in the camp of, you know, a spotter's a spotter, and I'm sure there are a little better ones, but I just kind of thought they were all the same at one point. And I couldn't be more wrong. It was a very foolish thought that I had. Back off to 20 again. I think the clarity that I'm pulling out with these better, higher end spotters is worth the money. And I'm not getting a kickback for saying that, okay? I do have an affiliate account set up with Maven, and I'm not focused on that. I'm focused on the product, and I'm focused on the glass and my shooting experience especially. But for those of you who are in the hunting world, this has got to be in your top 1 or 2. You really should look at this spotter, and I'm saying that because I want you to have a good experience. And I think the $300, $400 spotting scopes, they're going to leave you wanting, especially when the sun is going down and you're getting ready to take shots, maybe at extended ranges, or maybe you're just glassing for a hunt the next day. You are going to be so disappointed with the cheap spotters when the sun starts going down, or the sun is not in the right place, or you don't have the features that you need. This is everything that you need, especially hunters, but long range shooters, competitors, I think this has got you covered too. And that's why it's a really versatile, excellent spotter. So enough of that. You guys, if you didn't like this one, maybe go watch one of these videos, and maybe it's more in line with what you're looking for.